I had been watching the clock since midnight. Each tick sounded louder, heavier, like footsteps closing in on me. The shadows on the walls seemed to move, twisting into faces I didn't want to recognize. Memories, regrets, ghosts of the promises we once made. My suitcase sat by the door, half open, a silent witness to the decision I could no longer undo. The house was dark, except for the faint yellow glow from the kitchen. The smell of whiskey still lingered in the air, bitter and sharp. He had been drinking again. He always drank when he lied. And lately, he'd been lying every night. Julian's voice echoed in my head, cold, dismissive, with that fake calm that always came before his anger. "Juliet, you worry too much. You imagine things that aren't real." But I knew what was real. I had seen the lipstick stains on his collar, the texts he thought he'd deleted, the sudden trips that made no sense, and I had seen the way his eyes changed when he looked at me. Not with love, not even with anger, but with indifference. That was worse than hate. Tonight, he was asleep in the bedroom upstairs. I could hear his heavy snoring, the same sound that once gave me comfort. Now, it was my only sign that I was safe to leave. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Every step felt like walking on glass. I picked up the small photo frame from the hallway table, our wedding picture. We were young, smiling, standing in front of the old oak tree behind the church. For a moment I wanted to take it with me. But then I remembered the bruises, the shouting, the nights I cried into the pillow so he wouldn't hear. I put the photo back down. That girl in the picture. She was gone. The sound of thunder rolled outside, low and distant, as if the sky itself knew what was about to happen. I zipped my bag quietly and checked everything again. ID, cash, a small silver pendant my mother gave me, and the prepaid phone I'd bought secretly last week. I slipped on my coat and looked around the living room one last time. The air felt heavy, like the house itself didn't want to let me go. This had been my prison for too long. I walked to the garage door and froze. The keys. I had left the car keys on the kitchen counter. For a second, I hesitated. Going back inside could wake him up. But walking to the station in the rain would take 40 minutes. I swallowed hard and went back. The floorboards creaked under my feet, every sound magnified by fear. When I reached the kitchen, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. His phone, lying on the counter, the screen faintly glowing. A message notification. My stomach tightened. I shouldn't look, I told myself. But my hand moved on its own. I picked it up. The message preview read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. Miss you already." I felt my knees weaken. My throat burned. I didn't even have to open it. I already knew it wasn't from me. In that moment, all the doubts, all the fears that I had pushed away came flooding back. The woman he swore was just a client. The late-night calls. The smell of perfume that wasn't mine. It was all true. I set the phone down before I could throw it. My hands were shaking so badly that I nearly dropped the car keys. The rain had started, tapping against the windows like impatient fingers. I turned off the kitchen light, stepped into the garage, and started the engine. The sound felt deafening in the silence. As the garage door slowly opened, the cool night air rushed in, mixing with the smell of oil and rain. I looked at the house through the windshield. My home, my cage, my mistake. Then I shifted into drive and whispered to myself, "Don't look back." The tires rolled over the wet concrete, and the house disappeared behind me. For the first time in years, I felt something close to freedom, but it came with a pain so deep it almost felt like dying. I drove for miles, through the sleeping streets, past the dim glow of gas stations and empty diners. The city looked different at night. Lonely, vulnerable, like me. Every mile between me and that house was another piece of my old life breaking away. But I knew, deep down, I wasn't just running from Julian. I was running from the truth, because there was something else. Something I hadn't told anyone. I kept driving until the highway swallowed the neighborhood signs, and the rain turned the world into a blur of white lines and red tail lights. The radio was off. I didn't want music. I didn't want words. I wanted the noise of the engine to fill the places in me where fear kept echoing. At exit 41, a flickering neon sign announced a roadside motel, sunset rooms, vacancy, weekly rates. It looked like the kind of place people came to disappear, the kind of place where the clerk doesn't ask questions if you pay in cash. Perfect. I parked beneath a crooked palm tree that didn't belong in this climate and counted the bills again before stepping into the office. The air smelled like old coffee and lemon cleaner. A television murmured somewhere in the back, low and forgettable. The night clerk barely glanced up from a crossword. "Checking in?" he asked, yawning. "Yes," I said, steadying my voice. "One night, maybe two." Photo ID. For a second, my throat closed. Then I slid my driver's license across the counter. He didn't read the name. He didn't even read me. He just ran the card, handed it back, and pushed a key with a plastic tag toward me. Room 12. Ice machine's broken. Don't slam the door or it'll stick. I nodded, took the key, and stepped back into the rain. Room 12 was at the far end, beside a humming soda machine and a dented fire extinguisher. Inside, the carpet was thin, the bed too soft, and the artwork above the headboard was a faded print of a boat with no passengers. It felt temporary, the way pain sometimes does, sharp and then dull, pressing but survivable. I locked the door. Then I locked it again. My hands knew what to do before my mind did. Phone on the nightstand, charger plugged in, bag under the bed, coat draped over the chair to dry. I turned on the bathroom fan to drown out the storm and stared at my reflection in the spotted mirror. The woman looking back had rain in her hair and resolve in her eyes. She didn't look like a victim. She looked like someone who had made a decision she was going to live with. I pulled the prepaid phone from my coat pocket. New number, no history. I scrolled to the single contact I'd saved last week, back when this was still just a thought waking me in the middle of the night. Mara, hotline. We'd spoken once. She had a low, careful voice that made you feel like your ribs could unclench. She'd said I didn't have to decide anything. That safety was a series of small steps, not a leap into the dark. I hadn't believed her then. Tonight I needed to. I dialed. Women's support line. This is Mara. It's me, I whispered. Juliet, a pause. Not surprise, recognition. Are you in a safe place? I'm in a motel. I left. The words trembled, but they were true. I really left. Good, she said softly. You did the brave part. Can you tell me where you are without saying the exact location? I gave her the highway and exit number, the kind of vague detail that would help if she needed to find resources, but wouldn't betray me if the line wasn't as private as we believed. All right, she said. I'm going to text you a list of shelters and a legal advocate in your area. You don't have to go anywhere tonight. Tonight is for breathing. Do you feel safe for the next few hours? I looked at the locked door, the flimsy chain, the rain. Safe enough? Good. Eat something if you can. Hot shower. Sleep near the door if that helps your body believe you. And Juliet? Yes? You're not crazy. You're not imagining things. You're not alone. Something hot gathered behind my eyes. I swallowed it down. Thank you. After we hung up, the room felt less hostile, as if her voice had pushed the walls back an inch. I turned on the shower, let the steam rise, and washed the smell of the house from my skin. When I came out, I wrapped myself in the motel towel and sat cross-legged on the bed, the prepaid phone buzzing with Mara's promised text. Addresses, numbers, a note that read, "You get to keep your story. Share only what you want." I was about to power the phone down when my other phone, the old one, lit up on the nightstand. The screen flashed Julian. My chest went tight. I watched it ring. I did not move. It rang again, then a third time. Then a text. Where are you? Another. This isn't funny. Then, pick up. The words looked smaller than his voice ever did. Less dangerous. But the danger was there anyway, hiding behind the punctuation. I put the old phone inside the desk drawer and shut it, as if a thin piece of wood could keep him out. Then I opened my suitcase and took out the small tin that used to hold mints. Inside was a folded photograph, creased and worn at the edges, not of Julian and me, older, black and white, a porch with peeling paint, a wooden swing slightly out of frame, 2 figures, a girl with straight shoulders and a boy standing a little too close. Her hand is holding a book. His hand is not visible. I've carried this photo for years like a splinter I could never tweeze out. I don't remember who took it. Sometimes I think the house itself propped the camera and pressed the shutter, eager to save its secrets. I turned the photograph face down and slid it back into the tin. Some truths didn't travel well. Some truths could rot a new beginning from the inside out. I lay down on top of the covers and stared at the ceiling, where the slow fan traced a circle that never closed. Sleep came in pieces. When it finally held, I dreamed of doors, some closing, some opening, one with light under it that didn't reach my feet. I woke to sunlight the color of weak tea and the sound of wheels on wet pavement. For a few seconds, the room didn't make sense. Then it did, and the relief was so pure I almost laughed. I had not gone back. I had not been found. Morning had arrived anyway. I made coffee with the little machine on the dresser. It tasted like burnt plastic and stubbornness. I sipped it standing at the window, watching a couple argue quietly beside a pickup truck 3 doors down. Life goes on, everywhere, for everyone, even when yours feels like it's stopped. The old phone blinked in the drawer. Against my better judgment, I checked it. 10 missed calls, 16 texts. The first few were angry. Then they softened. I'm worried. Then, let's talk. Then, I'm sorry. Then a photo. Our living room table, set for 2. The caption read, "Come home and we'll start over." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. The cycle had steps, and he never missed one. I put the phone down and opened the curtains wider. Outside, the sky was rinsed clean, blue and ordinary. I could leave the motel today. I could go to one of the places Mara sent. I could begin the paperwork that makes endings official. I could tell the truth. Or I could tell the version of the truth the world accepts more easily. My chest tightened. Paperwork meant names. Names meant history. History meant questions. Where did you grow up? Any family we can contact? Do you have a marriage certificate? Birth certificate? Prior addresses? Every question had an answer. Not all of mine were safe to say out loud. I showered again, dressed, and braided my hair back the way I used to when I needed it tight against wind or memory. Then I packed my bag, slid the tin with the photograph into a side pocket, and checked the room twice. Motel rooms make you forget yourself. They take little things and keep them as tax. At the office, the clerk slid my receipt across the counter without looking up. "You're all set, thanks," I said. The word felt new in my mouth. I had not said thanks for my freedom to anyone but myself. Outside, the air smelled like hot pavement drying. I put my bag in the trunk and sat in the driver's seat with both hands on the wheel until my heartbeat matched the ticking of the turn signal. Small steps, Mara had said. Step 1, drive to the Women's Resource Center 2 exits over. Step 2, ask for the advocate whose name was underlined in her text. Step 3, breathe while strangers say my name like it belongs to me. I pulled onto the highway. The city lifted ahead, glass and angles. New streets, new chances. On the second exit ramp, my phone buzzed again, not the old one. The prepaid, unknown number. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice. Bright, efficient. "Is this Juliet?" "Yes." This is Talia from North Point Legal Aid. Mara passed along your info with your permission. We have a 10:30 opening today if you want to come in. It's short, but we can start intake and a safety plan. Intake, safety, plan, words like handles on a door. I can be there, I said. 10:30? Good. Bring ID if you can and anything you have access to. Financial statements, lease, insurance. If not, just bring yourself. That's enough for today. I thanked her, ended the call, and let my forehead rest against the steering wheel for a moment. My body was tired in ways sleep doesn't fix. But under the tired was something else. Movement, direction, the opposite of stuck. Traffic slowed near a construction zone, orange barrels narrowing us into one lane. A man in a neon vest waved us through with a sign that said, "Slow on one side and stop on the other." For a second, I envied the simplicity of that. Turn a circle, change a world. While we crawled forward, I glanced at the rearview mirror and saw a dark SUV 3 cars back. Same make as Julian's, same color. My ribs pulled tight like a fist. I told myself it was a coincidence. Hundreds of SUVs in this city, thousands. But fear is arithmetic. It adds everything up. I changed lanes. The SUV didn't. I breathed again. 2 blocks from North Point, I parallel parked badly and didn't care. The building was a gray wedge tucked between a laundromat and a tax office. Inside smelled like printer toner and citrus soap. A woman with a Juliet, she guessed. Yes, I said. Hi, I'm Casey. You're right on time. Talia's just finishing with someone. Can I get you water, coffee, a place to sit where no one will bother you? Her kindness loosened something I hadn't realized I'd cinched tight. Water is good, I said. She led me to a small waiting area with soft chairs that didn't look expensive, but looked chosen, like someone had sat in them first to make sure they felt like a yes. I sipped the water and tried not to study the exit door too closely. Talia appeared 5 minutes later in a navy skirt and sneakers, the kind of combination that says, I run on purpose. She shook my hand like she'd been waiting for it. I'm glad you came, she said, holding my gaze long enough for me to believe her. In a small office, with a window that looked onto a brick wall, she slid a folder across the desk. We go at your pace, she said. We can talk restraining orders, housing, finances, or nothing formal today. We can also just make a plan for the next 24 hours. You decide, I nodded. 24 hours, I said. That I can do. She asked gentle questions like stones set across a river, far enough apart that I could step one at a time. Any immediate threats? Any firearms in the house? Any injuries we should document? Anyone safe you can list as an emergency contact? I shook my head at that last one before the question had even finished. Anyone safe? The words felt foreign. I wanted to say Mara, but a hotline is a bridge, not a destination. I wanted to say my mother's name, but it wouldn't come. I wanted to say a name I haven't said in years. Okay, Talia said, making a note that did not look like judgment. We'll be that for now. She printed a checklist. Temporary mail hold, 2-factor authentication, freeze credit, new email, phone location settings off, bank alerts on, steps I could do, steps that proved the future wasn't just an idea. Is there anything else you want me to know? She asked finally. About him. About you. My eyes went to my bag, to the side pocket, to the small tin heavy with a light photograph. There's a part of my story I don't tell, I said. It doesn't help anyone to hear it. It doesn't change what I need. Talia's face softened in a way I didn't expect. You don't owe me your pain, she said. You don't owe anyone an explanation to deserve safety. Something inside me released so suddenly I had to grip the arm of the chair. The room sharpened, as if someone had cleaned the glass between me and everything else. We set a follow-up for Thursday. She walked me to the door and stood there while I stepped into the daylight. The street smelled like detergent from the laundromat vents. I checked both ways, not for traffic, but for eyes I recognized. Halfway to my car, my old phone vibrated in my purse, the one I promised myself I'd turn off. I fished it out before I could talk myself down. A voicemail. No text this time. I pressed play and held it a few inches from my ear, as if distance could dilute meaning. Julian's voice, careful, rehearsed. Jules, listen. I don't know what you think you saw, but you're making a mistake. Please come home and we'll talk like adults. I'm worried about you. He paused, recalibrated. I love you. Call me. He didn't sound angry. That was worse. Anger I knew how to fight. Tenderness from him was a tool. I deleted the message. Back in the car, I sat with both hands on the wheel again. The city moved around me, unconcerned and merciful. On the passenger seat, Talia's folder waited with its sensible tabs and kindness pressed flat between the pages. Small steps, I reminded myself. Breakfast. Find a month-to-month room. Change the locks on my mind. On the way to the diner, a song came on the radio that I hadn't heard since I was a teenager. It was one my mother used to hum while she shelled peas on the back steps, back before the porch swing went silent, back before I learned that some houses keep secrets the way some people keep pets, fed just enough to stay alive. I turned the volume up. Let the chorus fill the car, and, for the length of a single verse, I was just a woman in traffic, singing too loud, hair still damp from a motel shower, on her way to buy toast with strawberry jam and coffee that tasted like second chances. I didn't look in the mirror. I didn't need to, because for the first time, since I was young enough to believe the future was a place you can walk to, I knew exactly who I was without anyone else's permission, and I knew this much. The truth I had. The first real panic hit 2 blocks from the diner. I was waiting at a red light, tapping the steering wheel, when I saw the same dark SUV glide past in the opposite lane, slow enough that our eyes might have met if the tint hadn't been so deep. I told myself it wasn't his. Logic whispered statistics. Hundreds of cars, thousands of drivers. But fear has a louder voice. Inside the diner, the smell of grease and syrup wrapped around me like an old blanket. I ordered eggs, toast, and orange juice, though I wasn't hungry. The waitress called me sweetheart, without looking up, and I nearly cried from the kindness. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I froze. Another buzz. Then a text appeared. You can't run from the truth, Juliet. My stomach turned to ice. I typed back 3 words before I could stop myself. Who is this? No reply. Just a blinking cursor that stayed blank until the screen dimmed. I threw a few bills on the counter and left. Outside, sunlight had turned harsh, the kind that made everything look too real. I scanned the parking lot. No SUV, no sign of him. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I drove without a destination, circling the same few blocks until my gas light came on. Eventually, I pulled into a public park, killed the engine, and let the silence close in. That's when the memories started. Julian wasn't always the man I ran from. Once he was charm and safety wrapped in one. We met when I was 23. Fresh out of college, running from a different kind of pain. He was older, confident, the kind of man who made promises like oaths. He said he'd never let anyone hurt me again. I believed him until I realized I'd traded one prison for another. The first slap came after a dinner party when I laughed too long at another man's joke. The second came because I forgot to buy his favorite wine. After that, I stopped counting. What's the point of numbering ghosts? But it wasn't the bruises that broke me. It was the silence after. The way he'd look at me, as if I was the one who'd done something wrong. I thought I'd buried that version of myself when I left. But sitting in that car, I realized you don't bury pain. You carry it until you decide to set it down. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Mara, checking in. You okay? I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back. Not sure. Someone's texting me. Unknown number. Within seconds, she replied, "Block it. Don't respond. That's him trying to keep control." "You did nothing wrong. I blocked the number." Then I drove to the nearest gas station and filled the tank. Every person who passed me felt like a threat, every sound a warning. Trauma teaches you to live in parentheses, never fully part of the sentence, always waiting for what comes next. When I finally reached the edge of town, I saw a small sign. Mapleview Apartments, short-term rentals available. Something about the word short-term felt right. I parked, walked into the office, and met a woman named Donna who smelled like lavender and had eyes that didn't ask questions. "You looking for a place?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Just for a few weeks. Got a studio open on the second floor. Cash deposit, weekly rent, no pets." "You want it?" I nodded. She slid the papers toward me. "Name?" For a heartbeat, I hesitated. Then I said, "Julia." Close enough to remember, far enough to hide. The apartment was small but clean. White walls, one window, a view of the parking lot. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the hum of the fridge, the creak of the ceiling fan, the sound of my own pulse slowing down. I could live here. I could start over. But when night fell, the fear returned like a tide. I checked the locks 3 times, pulled the curtains closed. Then I saw it, across the street, parked beneath the flickering lamppost, an SUV. Same color, same model, my breath caught. I turned off the light and crouched near the window. The car didn't move. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, I forced myself to step back, to breathe. It could be anyone, a neighbor, a stranger. Still, I slept with my shoes on. The next morning, the SUV was gone. In its place was an empty stretch of curb and a single cigarette butt still smoking. At 10 a.m., Talia called. "We got your file started," she said. "There's a shelter 2 towns over with security and legal staff on site. You'd be safe there. Safe." The word was heavy with hope and exhaustion. "I'll think about it," I told her. "Juliet, thinking can be dangerous when fear is involved. Sometimes movement is the only safety you get." She was right. But something inside me whispered no. I couldn't leave yet, not until I understood the message, the photo, the thing that had followed me long before Julian's car ever did. Because deep down, I knew the person texting me last night wasn't Julian. It was someone else, someone who knew what I'd done. I woke to the sound of the fridge kicking on and the brittle light of a second-floor morning. For 10 seconds, I didn't remember my name, the town, or the SUV. 10 seconds of mercy. Then the weight came back and I was Juliet again. Shoes by the bed, keys under the pillow, a packed tote leaning against the door like a guard dog that couldn't bite. I made coffee in a dented metal pot Donna kept for tenants who arrived with nothing. I wasn't hungry, but the ritual steadied me. Boil, measure, pour, watch the steam like a prayer. At 9:15, I forced myself out. I drove to a strip mall that sold prepaid phones behind bulletproof glass. The kid at the counter had a skateboard tucked under the display case and a mouthful of braces. "Cash?" he asked. "Yes. Pick a plan. No contracts, no names. Sims ready in 5, no names." I breathed easier just hearing the words. I left with a new phone, a new number, and the illusion of a fresh start in a cardboard box. On the way back, I passed a corkboard outside a community center, flyers for a food pantry, a self-defense class, and, tacked crooked at the bottom, a support group. WED, 7 p.m., survivors speak, no judgment. Just listening. I took a photo and kept driving. The apartment smelled like sun-baked carpet. I slid the chain across the door and found an envelope on the floor, thin, unmarked, pushed under while I was gone. Heat crawled up my neck. I held it to the light, a square inside, heavy like a photograph. I opened it with a butter knife. A single Polaroid slid out onto my palm. Hospital room. Fluorescent glow. A teenage girl with a mess of hair and swollen eyes, cradling a newborn. The date stamped dull gray along the white border. My hand started to shake. The girl's gaze was turned down at the baby, but I knew that profile. Knew the way her collarbone jutted, the split in her bottom lip. Me. I hadn't seen that picture in 19 years. My knees gave out. I sat flat on the kitchen tile, the Polaroid on my lap like a burning coal. The baby's wrist wore a hospital band. You could just make out the letters in the blur, R. The rest of the name was turned away. There was writing on the back in a neat, unfamiliar hand. He looks like me. I felt the room tip. The edges of the past unsealed, and everything I'd bricked over began to breathe. There are stories you bury so deeply you convince yourself they never happened. 19 years ago, in another town with another name, I walked out of a hospital without my son. Closed adoption. A door I locked and welded shut and then built a life against. I told myself it was mercy, for him, for me. I told myself I was poison and he deserved light. I also told myself no one knew. The kettle screamed. I hadn't put water in it. I turned off the burner with a shaking hand and called the advocate. Talia? My voice broke. Juliet? I've got you. What happened? I told her about the envelope. Not the whole history, just enough to make breathing legal. She listened without filling the silences. Then, this is an escalation. It's not random, and it's not Julian's style. He uses intimidation, not breadcrumbs. It's not him, I said. I felt it last night. This is someone else. Then we treat it like someone else. We document. We don't engage. We tighten your circle. Can you come in today? I almost said yes, but the photograph pulsed in my hand like a heartbeat. I can't. Not yet. Then here's the plan, Talia said, voice turning crisp. Photograph the envelope and the Polaroid front and back. Email them to the address I'm texting you. Change your routine. Group tonight is good. Crowd, witnesses, structure. And Juliet, yes? Whatever this is, you are not alone in it anymore. After we hung up, I did what she said. Evidence, angles, timestamps. I slid the picture into a Ziploc bag and tucked it into the freezer between a bag of peas and the ice tray. Stupid maybe, but cold felt safer than warm. At noon, Mara called. Quick check, she said. You breathing? Barely. I ran what I could on that unknown number from yesterday. VoIP app, server routed out of state, purchased with crypto. In other words, someone techie or someone hiding behind someone techie. Could it be him? Could be anyone. But, she hesitated. There's something else. I looked at that photo metadata you sent Talia. Polaroids don't have XCF, but the hospital blanket pattern in your shot? It's regional. Only 2 facilities used it in that year. One is in a town you once lived in under a different last name. Want to guess how I know? You trusted me once, she said softly. You checked into my ER with a sprained wrist and a broken story. You never told me the rest, but I heard enough in the silences. I've kept my mouth shut for 7 years, Jules. I'm not going to open it now. My throat tightened. Thank you. Go to group tonight, she said. You think it's for other people, but it's for the part of you that never got to say the words. The hours crawled. I vacuumed a clean carpet. I arranged and rearranged 2 mugs in an empty cabinet like talismans. I wrote 3 messages on the new burner phone and deleted all of them. If you're him, say your name. If you're playing games, I will call the police. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. At 6:40, I left for the community center, moving on side streets, checking mirrors, changing lanes like a chess player. No SUV. Just the long, ordinary quiet of a small town getting ready for dinner. The room for survivors speak was low-lit with mismatched chairs, a box of tissues on a folding table, and a sign taped to the wall. What's said here stays here. There were 7 of us, plus a woman with a warm smile who introduced herself as Ruth. We don't fix here, Ruth said at the start. We witness. If you don't want to talk, you don't. If you do, we hold you up. A woman with a chipped pink manicure spoke first, then a man with a hoarse voice who kept twisting his wedding ring. A teenager in a hoodie counted his breaths out loud until he found words. When the circle reached me, my mouth flooded with heat. I didn't plan to talk. I planned to sit and absorb the courage of other people with more nerve. My name is Juliet, I heard myself say. That's not the name I was born with. Silence. Soft. Patient. I used to think survival meant never looking back, I said. But sometimes the past doesn't knock. It lets itself in. I didn't tell the whole thing. Not the names. Not the hospital. I told them about the Polaroid. About the envelope. About the way a life you believe is stable can tilt with a single square of paper. Ruth didn't say, I'm sorry, or why now, or what did you do? She said, you are so brave, in a way that didn't feel like a compliment. It felt like a diagnosis. It felt like she could see the scar I kept hidden under polite clothes. When the hour ended, we stacked chairs. Someone poured weak coffee into foam cups. People drifted out in 2s and 3s, shoulders looser than when they'd come in. I thanked Ruth and stepped into the parking lot, and there it was. Under the dented moon, the dark SUV idling by the curb. My pulse spiked. I slid my hand onto my keys, sharp points between my fingers the way the self-defense YouTube video taught. The passenger window rolled down with a soft, electric hum. A face leaned out. Not a man. A teenager. 17? Maybe 18. Thin, jawline still deciding if it wanted to be sharp. Green eyes that knocked every breath out of my chest. He cleared his throat like the start of a storm. I didn't know if you'd come out, he said. His voice cracked on come. He glanced past me toward the door, then back. Scared but stubborn. The way I used to stand at the edge of a decision and dare the world to push me. I've been trying to reach you, he said, and held up a phone with a cracked corner. On the screen, a text thread. The last message read, You can't run from the truth, Juliet. My skin went cold. That was you? I didn't know how else, he swallowed. I'm not here to hurt you. I just didn't want you to block me before you knew. Knew what? He took a breath so deep it lifted his shoulders. Then he said the one word I had spent 19 years rehearing in my nightmares and never, not once, out loud. Mom? Everything in me rebelled and reached at the same time. I stepped forward and the SUV engine cut. The driver's door opened. A woman in her 40s got out. Steady posture, soft eyes, a hand lifted in peace. I'm Karen, she said quietly. His adoptive mom. We told him we'd follow his lead. If you want us to go, we'll go. If you'll give us 5 minutes, we'll only take 5. The boy, no, the almost man, stood next to her, hands jammed into the pockets of a hoodie too thin for the night. He had my mouth. He had someone else's calm. What's your name? I asked, though I already knew. It beat through me like a second pulse. Caleb, he said, voice steadier. But they call me Cal, the name I'd written in a letter 19 years. Ago, and burned in a kitchen sink so I wouldn't change my mind. I looked down at my fists and realized I was still holding my keys like weapons pointed at a future I hadn't let myself imagine. I loosened my grip. The metal teeth dug new moons into my palm. Okay, I heard myself say. 5 minutes. In the open. By the door. Then we'll see, Karen nodded. Cal exhaled for what sounded like the first time in days. We stood under the buzzing porch light of the community center like 3 constellations trying to remember the pattern. Up close, Cal's green eyes weren't Julian's green or the... I sent the photo, he said, nervous words tumbling out. I shouldn't have. It was dumb. You were so young. I wanted you to know I know, that I'm not angry. I mean, I was angry, a little, at a shadow, but it wasn't you. I think I just wanted you to feel what I felt when I first saw it, which is real. A laugh slipped out of me, shaky and half-made, but real. You have a lot of words, I said, and the corner of his mouth twitched, like mine does when I'm trying not to smile. The 5 minutes stretched elastic. We didn't talk about the hospital or the reason or the man whose name I would not speak. We talked about small things that were really big. His favorite subject, physics, his least favorite, cafeteria pasta, the song he plays too loud in his car on days he needs to feel bigger than his bones. When the 5 minutes ended, Karen checked her watch, lifted her eyes to mine. "We meant it," she said. "We'll go if you want." I looked at Cal, at the boy I had loved enough to lose, at the man he was becoming without my help. My chest hurt in the best and worst way. "Come tomorrow," I said, before I could be afraid of the sentence. 10 a.m., the diner on Maple. We'll sit by the window. We'll order pancakes. We'll start. Cal nodded too quickly, like the word was holding him up. Okay. He backed toward the SUV and then forward again, as if remembering something. Do you like coffee? I could bring yourself, I said. That's enough. He smiled then, a full, reckless, brand new thing, and got into the passenger seat. Karen gave me a small, precise wave and slid behind the wheel. The SUV pulled away soft as a sigh. I stood there until the taillights dissolved, the night folding back in around the space where a miracle had just stood. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mara. "You okay?" I typed back, "I don't know yet, but I think I will be." And then, like a reflex, another message I never thought I'd send. "Tomorrow, pancakes at 10. The diner looked smaller in daylight. The same chipped counter, the same tired waitress who refilled coffee before you asked. But that morning, every surface seemed to hum with something fragile. Hope, fear, whatever happens when the past takes a seat across from you. I got there early, 10 minutes before 10. My hands wouldn't stop smoothing the napkin on the table. Outside, traffic passed in flashes of color and sound. Every time the door jingled, my breath caught. At 10:07, he walked in. Cal, hoodie traded for a flannel shirt, hair damp from a shower, eyes brighter than I remembered from last night. Karen followed a few steps behind, giving him space, giving me mercy. He spotted me, hesitated, then smiled like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to. "Hi," he said. "Hi." He sat. For a few seconds, we just looked at each other, two strangers with matching bones. The waitress came, pen poised. "What can I get you, hun?" "Pancakes," we said at the same time. Then both laughed, the sound clumsy and perfect. She grinned. 2 stacks coming up. When she left, Cal traced the rim of his coffee mug. "I almost didn't come. Why?" "I was afraid you'd look at me and see a mistake." My throat tightened. "I've made mistakes, yes, but you're not one of them." He nodded slowly, eyes on the table. "They told me you were young, that it wasn't your choice, not really." "It was, and it wasn't," I said. "I thought I was saving you. Maybe I was saving myself." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything neither of us had words for. Finally, he said, "I saw Julian's name once. On an old file." "You were married to him?" I nodded. "Not anymore. He was complicated." "That's one word for it," he murmured, then looked up quickly. "Sorry, I shouldn't—" "No," I said. "You can say what you feel. You're allowed." He took a deep breath. I looked him up. "He died 2 years ago. Heart attack. You probably know." I didn't. The world shifted. "I didn't," I said quietly. "I thought he's been—" I stopped. The messages, the fear, the shadow following me. Not him. Someone else. "I'm sorry," Cal said. "Don't be." I forced a breath. "You didn't take anything from me. You gave me something I didn't think I'd ever get. What's that?" "An ending that's also a beginning." The waitress arrived with pancakes and syrup, plates steaming between us. For a while, we ate in silence, the clink of forks and the hum of the diner filling the spaces between questions. After a few bites, Cal said, "Do you ever think about him?" "The baby, you know me." "Every day," I said. "Every birthday." Every first day of school I imagined but never saw. I didn't know your name until last night, but you were never gone from me. He smiled, small, shy. That's weirdly nice to hear. Karen sipped her coffee, eyes damp but soft. He's wanted to meet you for years. We told him when he turned 16. We thought it should be his choice. It was, Cal said. And I chose now, I nodded. You chose well. The bell above the door jingled again. For an instant I tensed. Old habits die slow. But it was just a delivery guy with a crate of oranges. I let the air leave my lungs. Cal noticed. You still get scared, don't you? Yes, I said. But I get scared after I act now. That's progress. He laughed, a bright open sound that felt like sunlight. You sound like Mara. You know Mara? She called last night. Said she was proud of me for finding you. I smiled. She's everyone's guardian angel, apparently. The conversation drifted then, easy as the smell of coffee, favorite movies, stupid jokes, the way pancakes never taste as good at home. Each story was a thread pulling us closer to something real. After breakfast, we stepped outside. The air was crisp, carrying that clean post-rain smell of possibility. Cal shoved his hands into his pockets. So what now? Now, I said. Now we take it one step at a time. You call when you want to talk. You visit when it feels right. No rules. No expectations. He nodded, eyes bright. Okay, but can I hug you? I hesitated only a second before opening my arms. He stepped in, awkward and gentle. He smelled like soap and youth and everything I'd lost and somehow found again. When he pulled back, his cheeks were wet. Maybe mine too. Karen waited by the car, giving us distance. He's a good kid, she said quietly. I can see that, I said. Thank you. For raising him. For loving him, she smiled. He was easy to love. You gave him that. As they drove away, Cal waved through the window until they turned the corner. I stood on the sidewalk, the morning sun warming my face, and for the first time in years, the world didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a promise. I walked back to my car, opened the glove compartment, and took out the Polaroid. I looked at it one last time, the girl with tired eyes, the baby she didn't get to keep. Then I tore it in half, not to destroy it, but to let it rest. Before I drove away, I opened the voice recorder on my phone and spoke quietly. To whoever hears this one day, if you think you've lost too much to start again, you haven't. Sometimes the story doesn't end when you run. Sometimes it begins at the diner with pancakes and forgiveness that tastes like syrup. I paused, smiling through tears. If my story touched you, don't forget to share it. Someone out there might need to hear it too. And if you believe in second chances, maybe subscribe for more. Then I laughed, a sound clean enough to be real, and turned off the recorder. The car started on the first try. The road stretched ahead, sunlight catching on every bend. And this time, I wasn't running, I was driving home,